welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
I'm Nessa. I'm back.
I'm Drew. I'm here.
Today we have Chanel again. Chanel, welcome.
Hi.
Yay!
Hello.
So, for folks who are not familiar with Chanel, we've got a whole episode with her last season. Go check that out. Go check her out on social. She's good fun. We love having her around, and we wanted to bring her back today because she made an appearance on the Bruins broadcast, and we want to know all about it. So, I
Do
guess
tell.
let's start out with how did that come about?
It just like every career opportunity that's ever happened to me, it started in a DM conversation with my now amazing friend Ayana. She works for Messin, and she messaged me actually last year around this time because they wanted me on for Hockey's for Everyone last year. And the way the calendar worked was that it was going to be during the playoffs for some reason. So I was waiting around for that, and I was like already panicking about it last October, thinking like, I don't have anything to say. I'm not really doing anything right now. So like that just sounds like a dumb thing for me to do. I don't have anything to talk about. So I was like, all right, well, hopefully I figure something out by then to talk about while I'm there. And then the Bruins decided to do the funniest thing possible, which was to get bounced early. And so that night actually never happened. So I was kind of relieved in a sense. And then I just kind of thought they had forgotten about it. But then my friend messaged me again. She's like, okay, we're doing Hockey's for Everyone night again, obviously. But it's going to be way earlier in the schedule this year, which I don't know what the rules are now because I'm not involved directly in the sport anymore, but it's kind of just whenever teams decide, which is a weird thing to do. So they planned it for December. December rolled around. I was like, the game was on the 4th or something like that. It's a couple weeks ago. And it was like the 1st or the 2nd. And I was like, all right, if I don't hear back sometime this week, like, I guess I don't have to worry about it anymore. And then Wednesday before the game, she reached out and she's like, hey, do you still want to do that? And I was like, I guess. Like, I still don't have anything to talk about. I'm like, I don't know. I was freaking out. I was like telling my friend, like, I don't know if I should do this anymore. Like, I don't have anything to talk about. Like, I don't want to waste time when maybe like another group or an organization that's actually doing something could go on and take my place. And my friends and my family were like, no, you should definitely do it. Like, you just never know what's going to happen with these things. And so I did, even though I literally vowed to never go on TV ever again. I guess that's just for national broadcasts. That is for right now, but it's fine. It was fun. It's fine.
So, what did you talk about? Please elaborate.
Yeah, so I was on during the pregame show. During one, there's two. I was on the second one that was like closer to game time, which I think was really cool. Just given that more people are kind of accidentally tuning in at that point. And with the expansion draft, when I did the expansion draft, I didn't really tell my family that I was doing that. I don't know, it was just really stressful, but for whatever reason I decided to like let my family know, like on Facebook, like, hey, I'm gonna be on this time, like if you're home you can turn on, if you're not, that's fine. So I at least told people this time because it was a really big deal for me, just given the fact it's my hometown broadcast, and very surreal to just like have that experience. And they just had me talk about like what the importance of Hockey's for Everyone night. Started out really hot with a question of like, the NHL doesn't do the best at catering to different diverse backgrounds or something like that, and I was like panicking in the moment because I was like, I was like, can you ask that? Like, I don't know. Like, we talked before, just being like, like,
Is
share your
this a
story,
safe
whatever.
space?
Yeah, it was like, it was very vague. Like, I had a conversation with the person that was interviewing me, Adam, like a couple minutes, well, like probably an hour before we got on. But it was only a quick conversation, and that just wasn't something that came up. Just being like, oh, we're gonna talk about like how the NHL like doesn't cater to everybody, and so as soon as he said what he said, I was like, my eyes, I feel like were like freaking out. I was like, I really hope that that didn't translate, because I just was not expecting him to say that, and I honestly didn't think they could say something like that. So I was really impressed with the level of questioning that he had. And honestly, like, given the circumstances, given how wild the Bruins organization has been in the past, given all the stuff, I was honestly like just surprised in a really good way that he said that. But I was also a little bit worried that he said that, so it was kind of like this very frantic moment. But it happened so quickly, and then, yeah, it was wild. But yeah.
Well, I just have to say that you killed it, because you just had like the poise of, I've been doing this forever. Ask me whatever you need to. Like, I would have been like, like, I don't know. But I mean, given that you guys had a little bit of like a preparation talk beforehand, I'm sure that like helps out and everything like that. But yeah, just you mentioning that they asked something where you're just like, are we okay to talk about that?
I know.
Like, it's because I mean, we've talked in like ongoing and in recent weeks, especially as the league retracted from how they function on specialty nights, and then the way that they handled Philip Grubauer's Indigenous Mass versus how they handled Marc-Andre Fleury's. It's like, what is okay and what is not okay, and people are just kind of like, I guess we'll just kind of walk this line, and then maybe we get flagged for it and maybe we don't. So I mean, I think it's great that that conversation was at least being had, and it kind of gives you this appreciation for, as a Bruins fan yourself, like, it, I hope that that kind of like makes you feel good about the team that you're, putting all this energy and love into. And that's kind of how I feel sometimes with like the Sharks. I mean, the Bruins versus the Sharks, I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, the Sharks can do whatever they want because no one gives two F's about our team anyway. But a team like the Bruins, I feel like there's more eyes on that team. There's, like, especially with Boston being, you've got like Boston College, Boston University. It's like hockey, hockey, hockey versus, like, we cheer when like anybody who has any roots in California like makes it to any pro level. We're like, yeah, we're here, cool, amazing. Like, maybe one day someone will care to talk about us. But I guess I'd like to know, because that night was their hockey's for everybody, and as someone who's been a lifelong Bruins fan, how does that night compare to what kind of like the Bruins have done in the past? And then what was your perspective with, because I saw that they, I guess for the opening lineup or whatever, they had various members of the local hockey,
Yeah.
just hockey in general,
Yeah.
from all walks of life.
Yeah, okay, so about, I'm gonna say maybe 2 years ago, I was still working for the Kraken, and the Kraken played the Bruins, and it was Hockey is Forever night. And at the time, I was a little bit bothered by the execution, because I think historically, I knew that Hockey's for Everyone Night was mainly to cater or to celebrate the LGBTQ plus community. So when I showed up for that game, it was kind of like, okay, we're gonna have someone from ever, like, anything ever, gay person, straight person, like trans person. Like, it was good in a sense. It was like it took on the word everyone and really meant everyone, which is, I think, what makes the tagline so frustrating when, like, I think the league at the time it was made presented it more as like LGBTQ and diverse inclusion in that sense, and not like diversity on a gigantic level. Which if they had started with that, I think I would have been okay with it. But because it seemed more for just the community in general, it was kind of like, I don't know. So I was bothered at first that they were like sort of avoiding, it felt like in a sense, the LGBTQ plus community in that moment. Like, okay, we're just gonna throw everybody under the sun here, and it kind of like diminished, in my opinion, the impact of what the night was supposed to be about originally. But since that year, I feel like they've been very consistent about the way they treat this night, and if they're gonna do something in this way, they might as well go for it. And it's been challenging, obviously, over the last 10 years or so to see the Bruins be behind in a lot of different ways. But I thought this year by far was the best executed version of it. If they're gonna stick to this theme of like really going with the for everybody sentiment. Um, and I don't know if you all saw, but they had like outside when you enter the garden, like the stairs were rainbow, and like it was not definitely not shying away from that community in its representation through rainbowness, but it was just nice to see that, and it was a little bit shocking. Like I feel like we're just out here looking for crumbs a lot of the time. So when I saw such a big statement, and even the outside, the garden was lit up in rainbow too. Like it was just really nice to see. Obviously, you know, hoping the money goes where their mouth is, because that is ultimately what helps keeps different organizations that support those groups going. And they did do a really good job of during warm-ups, like you said, or just during pre-game ceremony of having all these different local organizations, from disabled hockey programs to LGBTQ exclusive programs. Um, they had some main representation from, we're still sort of grappling with that tragedy that happened in Maine a little bit earlier, like in the last couple months. So they had like just about everything, and I think if a team is going to lean into that side of it and not sort of focus on more like the pride tape of it all, and inclusive jerseys like that, then I would rather them do it the way that the Bruins have done it so far. It's obviously not perfect, and I think sometimes it can sort of just minimize certain things or make people feel a certain way. But I felt more that way 2 years ago, and the way they were so loud with it this year, given all the shenanigans that's gone on, I was honestly impressed by it, and that's just coming from a place of like seeing it sort of become more and more impactful over the last couple of years. I think if they were quiet about it, or just like felt a little bit like they were avoiding certain things, like I would feel differently. But like they're very open with announcing like a trans player that they had, and like all these different youth groups that they had. Like it was just really well done, but particularly for the in-person experience. I'm not really sure, I didn't watch it back because I was there, but like I don't know how much the broadcast talked about it at all, but it was really magical in the moment. And also to not hear anything disparaging in the audience during any of that stuff is also, that should be the norm, obviously. But given where I am, like, that's not always a guarantee. So I thought it was really well done, and I hope that they continue to keep that same energy over the next couple of years.
And beyond.
Yeah, I really enjoyed how the Bruins did the Hockey is for Everyone night. I mean, like, whenever I seen the tweets come across on the feed there about just, like, they really they put the money where the mouth was when it comes to, like, hockey is for everyone. Because, like, Chanel, you had a good point. Like, when the NHL, like, started the Hockey is for Everyone sort of, like, night, there was a huge focus on Pride Night in that, and it wasn't as, I think, inclusive as, like, the league was marketing it to be, which, interesting as a side note here, I just thought that kind of goes back into some of the other things we talked about, like with the NHL kind of being the no fun league now, about sort of from, if we're really going to talk about like the NHL's track record with Pride Night, like they wouldn't even embrace Pride Night from the jump. It was just hockey is for everyone. It sounds kind of generic, and I just gonna put that out there just in case we want to go down that rabbit hole one day. But I enjoyed, like, I mean, LGBTQ. We had like sled hockey. There's there was women's hockey represented, you know, deaf, blind. It was just an amazing, like, they really did it. Like, I think in terms of like hockey is for everyone. Like, you know, this is our sport, and it doesn't matter how you find it or what background you have when you find it. Like, we embrace you here with the Bruins, and I thought that was pretty cool. I rarely do I have positive things to say about that team in Boston, but credit where credit is appropriately due.
Coming from a Canucks fan, you know, that's a big deal.
It carries some weight.
I just wanted to highlight that this is something that, well, you, Jay, have pointed out. Like when the whole thing happened, where the league decided to pull the warm up jerseys in general, where, you know, you had said this is an opportunity for teams to really step up and show what they really mean when they're saying that they're supporting communities. And I think the Bruins did a really good job of showing out.
Yeah, and I was just gonna piggyback off of just really everything that's been said, in particular to feelings of when the league started, Hockey's for Everyone. It was kind of like okay, what is this? And let me wait and see for you to show me what it's all about. And it did seem like they were trying to advocate for the queer community without saying that they're advocating for the queer community, and using the hockey is for everyone as their way of saying it. And it was just really like, we've talked about it numerous times on this podcast, especially when players are asked their opinion about it. And I get so irritated when they start naming off all the different other marginalized communities. And it's not to say that no one is as important as the queer community, but it diminishes the value when you just start lumping everyone together. But what I do like about what the Bruins did is, you know, Chanel, as you pointed out, that they're, and as also Drew mentioned, that they're leaning into it, and they're like really doing it in a big way. They're showing just how much hockey is for everybody. And so if we're going to reclaim that, and that's actually what it should be, then I would love to see other teams doing that as well. And then if there are teams that are like, you know what, and then we're going to have another night that is for the LGBTQ community, and you call that a pride night, now that night has to be exclusively for people who identify as queer, and then obviously the intersectionalities of our identities come into play, but the focal point is the LGBTQ plus community. So good on the Bruins for doing that. Just a few things I saw on socials was just like, wow, what is this? Like, that's cool. Like, especially the staircase. I saw that picture and I was like, what? Like, that would be so cool if you walk into the Shark Tank, because right when you walk in is the staircase. It would have just been, and you can see into the Shark Tank. It's all got like open windows and everything. It would be amazing. So just, I don't know, like use that as like the bar to set for this Hockey is for Everyone standard moving forward. And so does anyone else have any other thoughts before we move on to the next thing?
About the Bruins? Nah, just kidding.
Okay. So I saw in this last week that you've teamed up with the Ice Garden to it looks to me similar to what they started with. Within the same week, they were doing a collaborative listing of the LGBTQ plus hockey leagues, just anywhere in the world. I did send them an email when I saw that, because I'm like, hey, we've got one right here in Northern California. Their policy is pretty much like, if you identify as a woman, you've had experiences growing up assigned female at birth, cool, you're good to play here. And so I'll let you kind of explain what what you're working on with them.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. It's going to be a like public, not fan, but like by the people, for the people, all access, adaptive hockey programs list for basically across the globe, because we, obviously there's a ton in North America, but then we got like some from Sweden and stuff. So we're like, obviously, yeah, put those in there. You just never know. And it's just been really cool to see how many there are, even just within my own state. Massachusetts, obviously not small, but there's so many programs that you would not even like think that you even have. I think obviously if you're looking for them, you would know it's a very large, it's a niche population, just like most diverse hockey groups are. But it really is for like all skill levels, all abilities, or however you want to call it. I think in this context, I feel okay to say that, but it's for whatever skill level you have, and as long as it's for disabled people or people of that kind. And I can say it that weird way because I am disabled. It sounded so horrible coming out of my mouth like that, but I am tired, so sorry, guys. But yeah, it's a really cool list. Mike Murphy, who runs Guys Gardner, reached out to me about helping him with that, and it really took no time at all. The more difficult thing is just the sheer volume of groups that there are, which is really cool to see. But it's like, okay, do we put this one group, ASHA is American Special Needs Hockey or something like that, and they have a crap ton of programs in their huge umbrella program. So I'm like, okay, do we just put ASHA or do we put all of these individual groups in? And so we're putting all the groups in because it's location based by them. So I mean, a lot of these groups also have like their standard lists, and it does get tricky when you want to, put a resource like this out there, because it can feel like it's competitive, but it's really not. It's literally just who has the easiest access to whatever program is closest to them or whatever one they can afford. So there's not like, we have under 100 right now, but I really hope that we can continue to build off of it over the next couple of seasons, because there are so many amazing programs that people just don't know about. And whether or not like you or someone needs it, it's just fun to show, like, look at all these amazing adapted programs, look how differently they play the game. Like, just as a good reminder of like our shared enjoyment of the sport and how many different ways it can be played. um Saying that as someone who will never play in an adaptive hockey league, that's just not for me. I will watch, and that's about all I'm good for that. But it's been a really cool process, and I'm excited to keep doing that with Mike.
I was just scrolling through the list again. I was actually surprised. I think it's grown since the first time. Have you guys added to it recently, Chanel?
I went in and added all the recommendations from Twitter, so I think it was around like 60 or something at the last time that I checked it. So
Yeah, I was just scrolling through it. It looks like it had grown like a little bit more since like I had first seen it. And I was like, I, I'm not like in need of an adaptive hockey program if I were going to play, but um, God knows I'm accident prone. So if something were to ever happen to me, I feel pretty peace of mind knowing that I could still play. There's something out there, you know. I mean, I think sometimes people take their ability to do things for granted, and it's like, okay, why didn't I? I wasn't born with that hand, so I don't have to face it. But it's like, man, the little things like being able to just do basic stuff, that can be taken away from you in an accident. So yeah, I just like realistically like thinking about it, like, man, if something were to ever happen to me, I'm glad that the sport would still be accessible, because if it would be accessible for me, then it's accessible for the people that need it now. So I think that's pretty dope.
Every now and then we get a new follower, and it's always exciting to find that it's a hockey league somewhere, because like we could spend time looking and searching. I know I definitely have, like in the past when I've moved around, like one of the first things is there a hockey league in the area that I'm going to? And like, yeah, you could eventually find it, but there's something just comforting about having a one-stop shop location to just be able to look through it. And then it's also very comforting to, like Drew said, like, wow, there's so many. And like, to have something like that, and even if there's a desire to have a different type of list formed, like that's great for like the Ice Garden to be that kind of spot for people to go to as a first thought to where can I get that resource to, you know, be able to play hockey wherever I end up. So in less exciting news, but maybe interesting, I don't know, depending on how we approach this, sometimes I wonder how these things end up on my social feed, because it's quite interesting. There's somebody who posted a excerpt from, I don't even care what the podcast name is, but it's hosted by Craig Rive and another old man
Andrew
hockey
Peters.
guy.
I don't know him either.
And Craig Rive used to be on the Sharks. You know, obviously when he was in on the play and when he was like out on the ice, you're obviously rooting for whoever's in teal. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't really care so much for him, because he went on this strange rant on his podcast where Jeff Skinner, apparently his goal song is Breaking Free from High School Musical. And
Which
maybe
I think
it'll
is
show
great.
my age, but like I thought when he said Breaking Free, I'm like, Kelly Clarkson? I've never seen High School Musical, but you know, in listening to this clip, I was like, oh, okay, from High School Musical, sure, I'm sure it's a fun song. But they were being like old hockey men being like, oh, what is this? And just like going on and on, like for, I don't know, at least a couple of minutes. And I'm like, really? You guys are like spending a whole segment talking about this guy's like goal song and how like disgusted you are that like every time he scores, like that's the song you want to play to everybody. It's like, I don't know, dude, he's having a great time and you're on your old man a hockey podcast ranting about it. So I don't know what to tell you.
First, I'd like to say that High School Musical is historic. It changed our culture. It set the precedent for all these other cringy musicals that Disney Channel puts out.
It's cinema. It's cinema.
It's so bad, but at the same time, it's so good. You should watch it.
I won't
Just for
entertain
funsies.
this. I won't entertain this Jeff Skinner hate. I won't do it. I won't do it. We're soaring. We're flying
We're
away
breaking
from all the
free,
hate.
man. From
all of this hate, from all of these haters who have no cinematic taste. It was just, they missed out on the High School Musical cinematic experience. They'll never know. I listen, when I seen like the Sabres when they put the thing out and it had everybody's goal song, I must have went back and reread Jeff Skinner's like 5 times, because I was like, that's the High School Musical song, like, isn't it? And then like when I finally brought it up on YouTube, I watch Sabres games now with like the intention of seeing him score, just so I can hear the High School
it's the
Musical
only one I
song.
saw I was excited for.
Right.
And then when he scored his first goal, of course they posted it on their socials, and everyone loved it. You know,
It really, I mean, like my goal song would be like the Space Jam theme song or something. So shout out to him with the High School Musical.
I haven't thought of what my goal song would be. Maybe if I actually scored more, that'd be relevant.
I've actually probably given it too much time than I really should have. Like sometimes I sit there and I'm like on my porch and I'm like, if I were an NHL player, what song? And I'll spend like an hour just going through the playlist, like trying to find the right vibe. I'm like, Game 7, OT winning goal, like what are they playing?
Megan Thee Stallion. Just kidding. Anything by her.
Mine would be like Run DMC, like It's Tricky, or like Party Starter by Will Smith. You know, it's like it's got like a really good vibe. Yeah. See, I thought about it too much.
I've never thought about this.
Chanel, any thoughts to your goal song?
Would you be soaring? Would you be flying?
I mean, when I saw that, it was a green flag. Like, that's all I knew. I'm like, I'm probably never gonna hear it because I'm never gonna watch a Sabres game on purpose unless they're playing my team. And that just like does not happen enough during the year. So, or at least when they're at home where it matters, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I started the list and I was like, okay, like green flag. Like, I just think that you expect to see those lists come out. Like, anytime any team does any survey about a song with involving music, I just get scared. Okay, because it's either going to be boring,
Or country.
a rare green flag, or Morgan Wallen, and I'm gonna want to die. So it's like the options are so limited on, like, it's like, you know, there's so many songs out there, but like they just tend to slip in the weird ones in there whenever they can. And so I was just relieved. I stopped at his name and I said, okay, we got High School Musical, random, love it. Let's just pretend that's the only one that's ever been released, because otherwise I legitimately just cringe every time, just in anticipation of like, what am I about to read? So yeah, even though it's a very obscure choice, I love it. Like Nessa said, like lives were changed when that movie came out. I remember watching the second premiere at my friend's house. It was her birthday party. Her whole theme was High School Musical 2. It was wild.
Okay,
Very much
serious
changed my
question,
life.
Chanel. How old were you when the first one came out?
I think I was 6.
6?
Because I think it came out in 2005.
Did
So
it?
I think it was 6.
No way.
I think.
Can we not
Dude,
talk
no.
about the early 2000s? I feel so old.
I think it was mid
Yeah.
2000s. Wait,
that
first
came out
decade
2
anyway?
years ago. What are you talking about? No, it's definitely, yeah, I was young when it came, because I remember, I live with my aunt out. I remember coming here to watch it because we didn't have cable at my house, and it was, like, very important that I was here for the premiere of it. As you can tell, I'm a reformed theater kid, so, like, that was a very
Reformed.
exciting time for me. Yeah, it stopped when it should have, which was in middle school, so I don't even count myself as one except for in these types of conversations. But yeah, lives were changed. So I'm glad, happy for Skinner. Old men are gonna do what old men do. I feel like it's you know, it's a holiday season. Every holiday season we watch the Muppets Christmas Carol, and they just remind me, like any duo of two old men and just those two old guys in the
Statler and
Muppets.
Waldorf. Yeah.
Yes. That's just all I think of whenever I see a duo, two old grumpy guys. It's like, all right, like you're in character, I get it. We need some more, like, we
No
need just
one's
some more
allowed to have
chaos with
fun.
like little shrimp people. Like, we need more funny characters in the league. And I mean, I don't know. My highlight of the weekend was Kevin Weeks like dropping an announcement at the freaking Nutcracker, and I was like, "You have to be kidding me!" I felt so bad.
Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on shrimp people?
I forget what his character is. It's like Pepe. I think his name's Pepe. He looks like a shrimp. I don't know what he is.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
Little funny character people. We need more of those. I am like trying to fit that bill, but like I don't want to be on a broadcast ever again. So like I can't lean into that as my persona. So yeah, I need little chaotic hockey people more so in the space. And there's just not enough of that.
January 20th, 2006, guys, was the High School Musical release date.
Okay, so I was 6 then, I think.
I was in
at that
8th
point.
grade, so I think I was like 12.
You were in 8th grade. Guy, every time I come on here, I realize how young I am. Thank you so much.
I was about
I
to be
love that.
13.
I'm not going to talk about where I was at.
Jay, you were probably able to drink then. I don't know.
Just
You've heard of High School Musical. Now get ready.
just babysitting here for an hour.
It was retirement home musical for Jay. It was...
Oh my god.
Wow, we're going to mute Drew now.
Hey, I didn't get ages. I just said you were able to drink then, alright? I didn't say nothing about no retirement home situation.
Drew still needed his diaper changed.
I know.
Hey, we were
Hey.
about the same age. Chill out, dude.
both of you needed your diapers changed.
What does that
Me
make,
and-
I'm
Chanel?
so young. I'm so youthful.
A fetus.
I know. I was still in the womb, according to this. That's
In
so
the
lame.
womb, just throwing shade.
Just vibing. Just vibing.
She was in the
Oh
womb,
my
soaring
god.
and flying, y'all.
Yeah, I was.
Waiting to break free.
Yep.
Waiting for her number to come up.
I know.
Good stuff, guys.
Listen, I love this for the Sabres. I mean, like you, Chanel, I'm not going to catch a game unless like the Sharks are playing against them. But last season with Jeff Skinner's between two stalls, like otherwise I would not have tuned in for the Sabres, but I learned quite a bit about the Sabres just from that alone. And so if that's helping to keep the fan base alive, because I think there was a couple of seasons where people are just like, I need to, if I go to these games, I'm gonna have to put a paper bag over my head because it's beyond embarrassing what's happening with this team right now. And you know, if Jeff Skinner is down for that, and he's like, we've talked numerous times about like the how we're just digging for these personalities and this excitement from players. So it's nice to see that Skinner's like, oh, we're gonna have goal songs. Well, let me pick like this fun one, and I don't care how people react to it. I don't care if it's silly. He didn't go for just like some, oh, let's just play some like hip hop or like whatever the standard music genre that hockey guys, the hockey bros in the locker room are all advocating for. And then I did notice earlier this week that Jeff Skinner has a history of being an ice skater. I mean, a figure skater, and he, I guess, made the decision to break off from figure skating when he was 13 to focus on hockey. So clearly, he knows a thing or two about choosing songs to complement his dance number out on the ice.
He knows what gets a crowd going.
I just thought about that scene from Blades of Glory, and he's like, it gets the people going. It's just Jeff Skinner with his High School Musical goal song. I knew this. This was in my useless hockey like trivia general information knowledge that he did the twirly whirlies on skates before he went to hockey. I think that's pretty cool though. I think that to some level it probably gives him like a pretty nice competitive edge when he's out there like bobbing and weaving, you know, like he's got some like different sort of technical skills that people that just grow up like skating hockey styles don't know and don't learn. So I would think that's probably a pretty good like trick of the trade, you know, like, oh, what are you gonna do? Because Skinner's kind of a small guy. He's like, oh, what are you gonna do, little dude? And he's like, just twirly dirly right around you. Watch this, but you can't do that. I think it's cool.
I mean, look at the Hughes brothers. While they didn't do figure skating, they were taught by like elite figure skater, their mom.
Right, and they have some of the most beautiful edge work, some of the most beautiful like just like walking the blue line and dancing it in and sneaking through dudes. The Hughes boys are fun to watch, and Skinner. I mean, back in the day, I used to enjoy Skinner. He was drafted by like the Canes or something, wasn't he?
If you're asking the wrong people.
I'm not sure.
I remember him coming into the league young because I remember hearing about like the figure skating thing, but I always like, I don't know, I guess kind of like back when he was in the league in his early days, I was like, oh, look, like a science experiment. Like I was like, I want to see how this like figure skater does on hockey ice. I didn't know that he had like a background of like both sports, because the way I had like found out about it was like he was just a figure skater, and then he was like, I'm gonna hit people on these skates on the ice. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Like, you know, like you guys said, the Hughes brothers have some pretty nice skating skills. It's probably a nice little tool in the arsenal. I mean, if I could figure skate and then like translate that to hockey, I would. But there's no, your boy's not pulling off a triple axel anytime soon. It's not happening.
I mean, I don't think that should be the bar you set as like whether or not you should get into figure skating. I'm pretty sure that takes like more than a few sessions to get to that level. But I mean, I don't follow him closely, but I would have to go out of my way and say, like, I would assume that he's a very good skater because figure skaters use their edges like constantly throughout their routine versus I cater more towards one edge than the other and I can still play like halfway decent, but there's no way I'm going to be jumping off the ice and landing on one leg and like all that stuff. So
you don't want to attempt twirly whirls?
I will now do a 3.5 turn somersault landing on one ledge. I can't speak. It's give it up.
Corn and ledge. You're gonna invent new terms here.
It shows you my just striking, riveting knowledge of the sport of figure skating.
This is why we added you to this team.
You guys needed to know corn was a part of figure skating, I guess.
Now, when I got into hockey, a couple of my friends were on the other side of the ice in figure skating classes. So I would troll them and be like, "Oh, I can do that too." I mean, they're obviously way better than me. One of my friends went to like was on the team for like UC Berkeley, so you know I'm obviously not like throwing shade at her anymore. I'm like, "You're way better than I am." So.
I just imagine Jay to be the kind of person that's at hockey practice and like there's figure skaters at the other end and you're just like skating around them on your hockey skates. Like, do a kickflip, bro. Just at the figure skaters.
Listen, I'm not going to get into my my thoughts on being on the same ice as figure skaters because I'm sure they've got things that they want to say to hockey players and equally valid too.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I can't relate. Anyways, okay. So, and on a more serious tone here, can we kind of talk about what happened this week with Jordan Kyrou and the lovely fans over in St. Louis? Because if you guys didn't hear, I guess when Craig Berube, is that how you say his last name?
Craig
Berube? When he was fired, I guess they had asked Kyrou his opinion on it, and he was like, no comment, he's not my coach anymore. And fans kind of took it to heart and were upset by his comment, I guess. So that the next game that they had, I don't know if it was the same night, fans booed him when he was on the ice, when he was introduced as in the starting lineup, and anytime that he touched the puck, they were booing him. And you know, he was asked about it after the game, and he was literally like in tears because his feelings were hurt. Like, can we talk about how fans tend to forget that their favorite hockey players are people and have feelings? Not cool.
So to add some clarification on the timeline of it, so I guess it was on a practice on like a Tuesday when media was asked, and I think that same day or with just shortly after the head coach got fired and he was asked his thoughts on it, and like at face value I'm like, okay, he doesn't want to talk about it because obviously the coach isn't here anymore and they've got to focus on this other thing they've got, you know, going on, and the Blues aren't doing so well. So that's kind of how I took that comment without knowing anything about him as a player, any sort of history between him and Berube and all that stuff. But I guess he may not have had like the best relationship with the coach. At the end of the day, like, how much do we really know from like hearing something to actually what's going on in the locker room? Like, we'll never really know what's going on. And so at the game, anytime he touched the puck and when he was announced in the opening lineup, the entire arena would boo this guy. So the thoughts from what I saw from just at a glance with Blues fans on socials, you know, they really liked the head coach, and I guess Kyrou's been struggling, and with this with the dynamic between them, I guess maybe not being the best, they kind of felt like it was like a backhand to the coach. And then, you know, and then we have Kyrou, who the media speaks with him afterwards, and he clarifies things, which I feel like I can relate with. When I, you know, even now, I feel like I don't express myself in the best way. But when I was growing up, I almost never wanted to say anything because I always felt like people misinterpreted what I said, and it caused me to be really anxious about speaking up and all that stuff. So I can kind of relate with, like, no, that's not what I said at all. And you can take what he said however you want. But the fact that an entire arena, every time you touch the puck, booing you, I get that these guys make way more money than I'm ever going to see in my lifetime, but like you said, Nessa, like, they're still human. And like, I think sometimes people forget that, like, you don't have ownership on these players. Like, they're not just like pawns on the ice that you can be like, dance, little one, dance, you know? And like, I don't know. I really felt for him in that moment, because it's like, regardless of the relationship that he had with him, like, I think Berube, I think this was afterwards that he was asked his thoughts on how that all, his relationship with Kyrou and everything like that. And it seemed just like, you know, it's business, and like, he didn't really have anything like bad to say with their relationship. So I just really feel like fans are kind of letting their emotions get, you know, dictate the narrative. And, you know, on one hand, I get it, but like, in the same respect, like, I'm never booing a player on my team.
Yeah.
And we've had players on the Sharks where I'm just like, I don't like you, but I'm not going to go out of my way to join the 17,000 other people in this arena to boo you. Like, I
He
don't know.
didn't,
That was very,
like, Kyrou didn't, like, torch him, right? Like, he didn't come out and, like, flame Berube. He would just, like, said no comment. Or did he?
he said no comment. He's not my coach anymore.
What's crazier to me is, like, in the scope of things, if there was some sort of turmoil in the locker room, that was probably the most professional thing he could have said, right? In the interaction was like, no comment, he's not my coach. Like, but had he responded to this with like, oh yeah, screw that guy, that no coaching, you know, like, if he would have just went on this whole tangent, like, I could see maybe the fans or whoever leaning into him. I'm still not okay with like booing your own players, right? Like, these guys are dressing in the sweaters that you represent your own way, right? Like, they're doing war for you guys as fans and for everybody else in the organization. Like, there's been players that have put on a Canucks jersey, and I did not boo them when they were out on the ice. I mean, like, in my mind, I was like, man, I wish we would just like trade you and be done with it, you know? But like, I'm not actively like voicing. It's like Team Tank. Like, when people are like, I hope we lose for the draft picks, and it's like, that's a joke. You don't play sports to lose. You play sports to win. Like, don't cheer for your team to lose. That defeats the purpose. I don't understand it. Like, I don't know. Don't boo for your own players, even if you don't agree with what they had to offer up. I think, okay, so I let me backtrack. I think there are circumstances where like you could boo somebody and it's like a social statement, right? Like, if somebody had said something like really off the wall, like racist or something, and like the dude comes out and he gets booed every time, it's like, you deserve that. But like, in this in this regard, like, in the scope of things, was probably maybe perhaps one of the most professional ways he could have responded to that question. I just think it would have been like entirely expected response for the Blues if he would have come out and just like completely torched Berube, but like, he didn't, and it was a pretty mild sentiment from Kyrou. So I think that's wild to me. Like, at the end of the day, they're their own person. Like, Jay, we've talked about it now in the last couple episodes. Like, there's been something that's kind of come back to that subject of like, they are their own people. Like, they're they're not just, it's, probably predominantly in their minds it's just hockey, but like these guys aren't just hockey, right? Like they're people outside of the sport. They exist in spaces and cultures outside of the sport, and they have their own sorts of struggles that are happening off of the ice too. So I don't know, man. I just like rabid fan bases. I get it. We're all passionate people, but like it's not like you're gonna boo him and they're gonna trade him tomorrow because he said the thing that you don't like, right? Like if it worked that way in sports, we'd probably all be a lot happier sports fans. But it doesn't happen that way. So like, I don't know. It could have been worse. It could have been worse, Blues fans. It could have been worse. He could have said so many mean things, but he said nothing.
How dare he?
How dare he say no comment?
Mad.
That's angry.
I'm so glad we're talking about this because I just watched a podcast last night where they were talking about this, and the worst part for me is that, at least to my knowledge, like currently, it's been a couple of days since this happened. It was literally a journalist who tweeted it, so it was just text. It was just when asked about Berube, Jordan Kyrou said this. So we don't get any indication of what his tone was when he said this. There's a huge difference between he's not my coach anymore, no comment, rather than some like where he seemed even more soft and like subdued when he was asked about it later that night when he's like getting emotional about it. He's clearly like a mild mannered person. So at least in my imagination, he's not saying it with this like spiteful or like proud energy or like thank God he's gone type of vibe. Like it was probably just like, he's not my coach anymore. Like, I don't want to comment on it. Like, I think when you see something without any type of tone, without a journalist even saying like, when asked about this, Jordan Kyrou like softly said, like there's no indication of how he said this. And I think that changes truly everything about what happens afterwards. Because if they had put any sort of thing like, he got quiet during this part of the interview, or he, raised his voice a little bit or changed whatever, which is not exactly their job, but I feel like it's a harsh word to use, but it's a little bit dangerous to say stuff like this, not provide a recording of this or a clip of it, just because this is what happens when you don't provide additional context that fans who, have been afforded different, Stanley Cups from this coach who seem to have a very positive relationship with him. When you do hear someone, who's struggling and that you might not have a lot of respect for that player in that moment, but like if you heard him say it and then realize that he just was genuinely not wanting to talk about it because it's not a problem anymore, like it shouldn't be a part of the conversation. Like so much of this space of hockey in general and media setting is we're talking about the game, let's only talk about the game. Like we should not, drag out these personal things. I think it's different depending on what the circumstance is, but like here obviously, and Boston hasn't been a very quiet season with some of the shenanigans that's gone on here. And it's one thing to be like, to have a press conference about something and not want to comment on something versus, we're just not going to talk about it, period, and we're, going to avoid or whatever. Like, I think people are allowed to have whatever emotion they want about it. And obviously, if you didn't want your coach to get fired and you got fired anyways, that sucks. Like, anybody can kind of relate to that, especially if they hold some sort of sentimental part in you. But I think that this is a player that's on your team, like everyone has said. It just seems nonsensical to boo a player when you're winning the game, and when all he did was be as respectful as he possibly could have by not, putting all their dirty laundry out. Like I agree with Drew. I'm like, what would you have rather him say? And I would, as a fan of his, sort of in passing, like I would hope that somebody would have just said, like, here's the clip so that people can understand that he said it, in the sad, like, in the melancholy way, rather than like a, yeah, he's not my coach anymore, like, no comment, like, whatever. Like, there's just such a huge difference in how people say things when they're just, trying just get to work. I think it can be harder for a lot of people to pivot during that type of situation, but I just didn't understand it because they were winning the game when that happened. He's a player on your team, and from every other knowledge that I know of, because, like when things happen to players like this, I feel like everybody out of the woodwork comes in and is like, well, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. All I heard was that he's having a tough year. So to hear that he's having a tough year, and now you guys are booing him because you're upset that your coach got fired, it just is not. It's not making sense. And it makes even less sense the next game where they end up cheering for him and all is well. And it's like it never happened. And I'm like, guys, like, that's a lot. That's a lot.
That's
I'm glad you're
gaslighting.
sorry. I'm glad you're sorry. Exactly. No, that's what it feels like. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, I mean, obviously, it's a fan's choice to do that, and they have their own reasons in their own mind about why they did that. But I just feel for Jordan in this moment because I'm like, one day I'm like crying post game after my team won, after our coach has been fired, like so many of these different things. And then the next night I'm being interviewed on the bench. You can't even hear me speak because everybody's like cheering for me and whatever. I'm like, I would be just so confused about it all. And yeah, to Andrew's point earlier too, like I am not better than Jay, because there are definitely times where I would probably boo my own player, but it would be for a gosh darn good reason if I did. Because you just never know who your team's gonna sign, and if they make a mistake, I'm gonna let them know that they made a mistake. But that just might be the East Coast in me that just doesn't care, no matter what jersey you're wearing. If you're a bad person, you're a bad person. So, I don't know. But Jordan Kyrou is not a bad person. He's having a tough time, and to be asked the question, he answers it in the best way that he could, and then people ran with it. And I do think journalists have some kind of responsibility to an extent, if not to say within a quote, you can tell in their tone, like this and this and this. At least provide a clip or a recording or something that could help fans understand what was happening. Because upon reading it just dry without any of that, like I could be like, ooh, like that doesn't sound so good. Like no comment could sound bad, like off without any context. Just be like, oh, like that's not good. But it really truly depends on how he said it. So it's a mess. I hope they're good now, but I would really kind of hate to see him be stuck there if that's how flippant things are over there. It's just a lot. So I hope he's okay. But that's wild.
The reporter who asked that question did end up writing an article just like assessing how that kind of like all ended up unfolding, and he did mention that moving forward it's kind of like he also wants to do better in like providing that extra context, because he can see how that kind of contributed to this sort of unfolding how it happened.
I mean, I was surprised at like the reception of him like being so emotional was, because I didn't see. I mean, I'm not on Blues Twitter, thank God, but like I didn't see anything wild where it was bashing him for being so emotional. I think that's when people realized, they're like, oh, like I don't really know if he meant it to come off bad when he's literally crying post game about, like, he sounded genuine about it when he said, and he apologized. He didn't have to apologize. I was like, bestie, you don't have to. You didn't do anything wrong. You said what you said, and it was people's interpretation of it that hurt him, which is just a mess. So I'm glad that journalist like realized that, and hopefully others take note, because context is everything. Even if you don't have a recording, if you can just provide like in a follow-up to be like, don't make a mistake, like he said this in a somber way or just whatever. That's just so different than anything else that you can imagine it to be. And it was probably just more casual and solemn, like it should have been, and not aggressive like people were trying to make it out to be. So I did see that, I didn't see too many people getting upset that he was so emotional over it. If anything, I do think it helped people remember that he's a human being, but it's also just a very weird thing to witness as a fan of the game, just to see like how very easily people can run with these things, and that's why providing context is super important. So hopefully more people take note of that, because look what happened. Like, this should stop. Like, we should not have another incident like this year, which is, bound to happen, but hopefully not.
Yeah, I think it bothers me because, like you were saying, like Kyrou is taking responsibility for his words, but really, I think the responsibility should be on the journalists themselves, because a lot of times they're trying to find a headline and like something that they know people are going to click to read, so that they're looking for the drama, but at the same time, they also should consider that, you know, look how powerful you can be, look what you caused, this whole like rift between a player and their fans. It's sports can be really frustrating.
Well, that's all we've got for you all today. Thank you, Chanel, for coming on and sharing your experience on the Bruins broadcast and what you've been working on and contributing to some of these things that happened in the hockey world this week. And as always, I am your host, Jay.
I'm Nessa.
I'm Drew.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.